Chapter 1621 The Ultimate Link. After Qin Xuanba and Yin Jia fought a blow, without any hesitation, he suddenly rushed towards Yin Jia, fast as the wind. His speed was too fast, and the whole person was like a phantom, twisted into a blurred light in the air. Yin Jia's eyes struggled to catch his existence, and suddenly he only felt a threatening breath coming from his side. He swung the huge battle blade in his hand without hesitation and swept it to the left. Qin Xuanba appeared beside him, and a simple and pure killing force, military-way killing fist, hit him hard. Invasion like fire. The fist hit the battle blade directly. This was the purest power bombardment. The fist hit the edge of the battle blade hard. The invisible air wave exploded with the two of them as the center. The air wave forcibly broke the earth, pushing layer after layer of soil to surge around. In an instant, the ground under their feet sank dozens of meters, and layers of impact areas appeared with them as the center. During this confrontation, Yin Jia actually retreated 3 steps. His pupils dilated, unable to believe such a fact. I actually lost to a human in a battle of strength? In terms of size, he was obviously 2 or 3 times that of Qin Xuanba. Moreover, he was also an existence that had trained his own strength to the extreme. But he actually retreated 3 steps? Move like thunder. Although Qin Xuanba had gained a slight advantage in his attack, his expression was still as cold as the glaciers in the Arctic that had not melted for thousands of years. There was nothing else except murderous intent. Yin Jia retreated 3 steps, and he followed closely, and his movements were so fast that it was dazzling. Quick, quick, quick. His fists were like a violent storm, bombarding his vital points. Each punch was filled with terrifying murderous intent, and because of the excessive speed, an unsolvable whirlwind was entangled around him. Yin Jia's 3 steps back were very fatal, causing him to lose balance in the battle of strength between the two, and he also lost the initiative. Qin Xuanba's crazy attack forced him to passively defend. He held a huge battle blade in his hand, using it as a shield and a weapon at the same time. He blocked left and right, holding the battle blade in his right hand to fight against Qin Xuanba, and his left fist would collide with Qin Xuanba from time to time. He was not convinced. How could he lose to the opponent in terms of strength? He must have underestimated his opponent, so he was careless. No matter how he suffered, he wanted to get back the place. It's hard to know, like the shadow. Qin Xuanba slowly uttered these words. Originally, Qin Xuanba's body was almost transformed into thousands of layers, making it impossible for Yin Jia to accurately grasp his exact position. In an instant, his body fell into the endless darkness around him, like a breeze blending into the air. When he opened his arms, Yin Jia suddenly found that the sky around him suddenly darkened. Everything disappeared. The dilapidated ruins around him disappeared, and the soldiers fighting fiercely disappeared. The entire Fengtian city also disappeared. There were only the dimly flickering stars in the sky above the sky. He saw Qin Xuanba's figure again. He was in front, less than 100 meters away from Yin Jia, walking with his fists clenched. A dark and strange energy condensed above the 2 fists, approaching him step by step. Yin Jia clenched the giant blade in his hand, and he wanted to cut the guy in front of him in half with one knife. However, although he was screaming madly in his heart, he couldn't raise his hands. Because his eyes told him that Qin Xuanba was in front of him, but his heart and his intuition could not feel the existence of that person. Qin Xuanba in front of him seemed to be just a false phantom. There was no sound, no breath, and even no killing intention towards him. Even Yin Jia didn't know whether the person in front of him was Qin Xuanba, or someone hiding in the dark was Qin Xuanba. Qin Xuanba looked at Yin Jia and came in front of him in the moment he hesitated, and his 2 fists hit his chest directly. By the time Yin Jia reacted and wanted to resist with the battle blade, it was too late. Everything seemed slow, but for the 2 black chariot-level aliens, all this happened in no more than 0.01 seconds. The slightest hesitation would lead to defeat, or even death. Qin Xuanba's fists hit Yin Jia's chest directly. Crack. He heard the sound of bones breaking, perhaps accompanied by the armor on Injia's body that symbolized his status as a general. Injia's chest was deeply sunken, and the silver armor on his body was shattered, revealing a red body.
Boom.
Injia was like a cannonball and was directly hit by Qin Xuanba's 2 punches and flew out.
Boom, 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 boom.
Buildings were smashed one after another. Qin Xuanba's power was so strong that Injia actually smashed countless high-rise buildings and flew more than 10 kilometers away. The human soldiers around looked at the scene in front of them in panic. They couldn't even dodge in advance and could only stare at it in amazement. Qin Xuanba's body bent slightly and then suddenly took off like a rocket. With a wide green, the colored military coat rustled in the wind in the air, and he chased after Injia. Boom! Injia didn't stop until he hit a hill. His body sunk deeply into the mountain, and Qin Xuanba followed closely behind. He fell from the sky, clenched his right fist, and a black supernatural power turned into a ball of light and blasted directly down. Xuanxiu is the Black Emperor among the 5 emperors. His great achievement is the Jedi Tiantong, which blocked the passage between the human world and the heaven and separated people from gods from then on. Qin Xuanba used Xuanxiu as his code name, and his ability is Jedi Tiantong. That is, the supernatural power that can dissolve supernatural powers. Anyone hit by the black light in his hand will have all supernatural powers disintegrated. Of course, in addition to disintegrating supernatural powers, it can also disintegrate people's bodies.
Boom.
Qin Xuanba punched at the position where Injia was. It is as difficult to know as the shadow. The black light turned into a ball of light and flew away. And in an instant, dozens of cracks appeared on the mountain, and a sharp white light burst out through the mountain. Boom! The hill exploded directly. Silver armor held the battle blade and broke through the mountain and flew up. At this time, the armor on his upper body had been completely destroyed, revealing his original appearance. He stared at Qin Xuanba in the distance, his eyes full of naked murderous intent. I didn't expect that there would be such a person like you among humans. Qin Xuanba stared at him coldly, his voice as cold as a winter day in the northeast. I didn't expect that you were hit head-on by my wind, forest, fire, and mountain, and you are not dead yet. Go to hell. Silver armor held the battle blade. The muscles of his arms swelled up, and he chopped down fiercely. The terrifying air wave directly caused the storms from all directions to roll back, and the earth roared and shattered. Chapter 1622. Withdrawal. Half an hour later, most of Fengtian City was reduced to ruins. Qin Xuanba and Injia fought for a long time. Both of them had extremely strong physiques, and both their strength and defense were improved to the extreme. At the beginning, Qin Xuanba took advantage of Injia's misjudgment of him and seized the initiative. But how easy is it to kill a strengthening ability user with similar strength to yourself? After the strengthening aliens reached the level of Black Chariot, both their body defense and self-healing ability are too terrifying. Qin Xuanba's military killing fist used a killing move at the beginning, almost punching through Injia's chest. As a result, Injia only used less than a minute to completely repair his own injuries. These two people, like two humanoid beasts, launched a brutal close fight in Fengtian City. At this time, they all had hundreds of scars on their bodies, and many of them were in vital positions. 7 deep fist marks were left on Injia's chest. The terrible degree of the indentation even made people feel that his internal organs were about to break. The green military coat on Qin Xuanba was also torn to pieces, revealing his naked upper body. A hideous wound ran diagonally from his left shoulder to his right abdomen. The knife almost split him in half. But even with such a serious injury, Qin Xuanba still stood firmly on the ground with his legs, staring at Injia with a sharp gaze.
Boom. Boom.
The battle in the distance was still going on. It was the fierce battle between Han Shanzhua and the Tiger Guards and the Wugu warriors. Injia stared at the man in front of him and couldn't help but let out a dull snort.
Well,
it seems that it is unlikely to capture this city. He raised his head and glanced at the sky, then looked at Qin Xuanba, stretched out his thick right arm, and pointed at Chen Xuanba with sharp claws. You are very good. You let me know that the human beings in this world are stronger than I imagined. Chen Xuanba raised his mouth with a sneer. The battle is not over yet. When you die in my hands, you will understand how strong I am. His clenched fists once again showed a black light. The ability of Stop War actually plays the smallest role when fighting against the enhanced aliens, but that is only relatively speaking. Its corrosion to the flesh is also terrible. Let's stop here today. Unexpectedly, Jia suddenly said such a sentence. Chen Xuanba frowned. He didn't know what Jia was planning. Human, I will remember you. We will meet again. Jia left such a sentence and looked at Chen Xuanba deeply, as if he wanted to remember the appearance of this man in his heart. Then he suddenly took off into the air and flew away. At the same time, the entire Wugu army seemed to be inspired by something and evacuated the battlefield at the same time. They took the bodies of their companions and followed Jia's footsteps to fly high into the sky. The black and white commander looked at Han Shanzhua in front of him and said to him, "You are lucky. But next time, you may not have such luck. There is not much time left for you." The words of the black and white commander seemed to contain some special meaning, and Han Shanzhua, who was already exhausted at this time, had no time to think about it. Because, if it were not for the sudden joining of the National Defense Army, Fonon City would have been destroyed at this time. Even though the Wugu troops left, they still seemed so calm. On the contrary, the bodies of human warriors were everywhere in Fonon City. Han Shanzhua stood in the cold wind, raised his head, and looked at the sky. He slowly closed his eyes and cursed with a distorted face. "I'm really fucking stupid." On the other side, Chen Xuanba stared at the Wugu troops going away. His eyes were as sharp as a saber out of its sheath. Compared with Han Shanzhua's pain, his eyes contained more anger. But he did not choose to chase after them because at the moment, the ruined Fonon City could not withstand a greater blow. And his duty as a reinforcement has been completed. A sergeant ran over with a military coat behind him and put it on him. Chen Xuanba put on a wide military cap, lowered the brim of the cap, and said in a deep voice, "Sooner or later, I will kill you guys in your lair. I will kill you all." The officer of the command center brought people over and expressed his heartfelt gratitude to Chen Xuanba. "Mr. Zhuanxiu, thank you very much for your support. Please follow me. General Ji wants to thank you in person." Facing the attitude of the officers of the Northeast region, Chen Xuanba waved his hand indifferently. "Let's skip those meaningless procedures for now. You should have a lot of things to do next, and we have to rush back to the border as soon as possible." After saying that, he led his National Protection Army to cross the officers of the Northeast region and walked forward. There was a roar of an engine in the sky, and an F-12 armed helicopter stopped in front of him. After Chen Xuanba stepped on the helicopter, he left without looking back. News from various regions has been transmitted to Shengjing region. The entire Huashu country, except for the Southwest region and Xinjiang region, the other 4 regions were hit hard. The high-ranking officials of Xinjiang, including the 2 top fighters, Ho Tu, Dizong, King, staying on guard in the middle of the night, not daring to be careless. Because the Wugu troops are rushing too fast, they are likely to attack Xinjiang City unexpectedly. It was snowing heavily. The snowflakes fell like goose feathers. The snow outside the Earth Temple was already more than 1 meter deep. It would take a long time to clean up this huge square tomorrow. Guan Longwa stood outside the temple door in a black cloak. Because of the combat uniform inside, she was not afraid of the -80 degrees cold outside. Her dark eyes had no temperature, and there was an unfathomable darkness. She just stood there quietly, as if waiting for something. Beside her, there was no guard at this time, only a tall young man in white, Xidagarba Shangdawan. The 2 waited for a long time under the eaves of the Earth Temple in the wind and snow. Guan Longyue spoke slowly. "Why haven't they appeared yet?" "East China Sea, Northeast China, Northwest China, and Jiangnan. 4 regions have been attacked one after another. If their goal is to overthrow Huaxi State, then this should be their first target of attack." Shang Dawen frowned slightly. He wore golden glasses and his face was as cold as a knife, but when he was next to Guan Longyue, there was always a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. He followed Guan Longyue's gaze and swept across the square in front of him. In his mind, the entire Earth Temple and even the entire inner city of Shengjing, all the movements were under his control. Maybe they're scared. Chapter 1623. The Right Time and Place. Northwest Region. Yin Jia, who was in charge of the attack here, was the holder of the smoke ability. He used the smoke covering the whole city to kill nearly half of the soldiers in Chang'an City in just half an hour. The number of ordinary human deaths was controlled. Because in such an era, not only Tianhai City has underground shelters, but also all large cities have such existence. The power contained in those thin smoke is so strong that it is jaw-dropping. Even Li Changgong has to put away the smile on his face and deal with the enemy in front of him with all his heart and soul. The seriously injured black chariot is still a black chariot. I am God's will. Facing the black smoke coming from all around, Li Changgong pulled out the sharp blade in his hand. The two long swords, which were strengthened by Shaolai's Metal Frenzy, are not inferior to Liang Yu's Dragon Roar sword. Clang! Li Changgong's move was very fast. His sword was so fast that people could not catch it at all. When he fought with Zhang Yi, his sword made Zhang Yi feel a stinging pain on his skin just by moving it. The ability of I am God's will instantly split all the smoke attacks that attacked him. Ignore everything and cut off everything. This is the power of I am God's will. The sword in Li Changgong's hand swung countless times in an instant, blocking all the attacks that attacked him. But after the smoke was split, it turned into the shape of smoke again. The silver-armored man's body was half smoke-like. He slowly flew up into the sky, and his right hand controlled the large amount of black smoke around him. The smoke rose from all directions around Li Changgong, like 4 huge high walls. Li Changgong from the northwest region has the ability to attack absolutely, without regard for any physical defense. But the disadvantage is that the attack range is limited, and it tends to attack one target at a time. Then, we just need to increase the distance, and then continue to use Smoke Kill to attack him. The northwest region is located in the innermost direction of Huashu country, and there was a certain amount of time to prepare before the attack. Therefore, most ordinary humans went underground, so there were not too many deaths. Nowadays, even if the cities outside have been destroyed terribly in the War of Aliens, as long as the northwest region can successfully defend this battle, then with today's science and technology, rebuilding the city is not too troublesome. Yin Jia rushed into the command center where Li Changgong was, wanting to behead him directly. But what he didn't expect was that Li Changgong had already made preparations and cleared the entire command center building in advance, and detonated all the explosives arranged in the command center. It was a directional explosion from the ground to the sky. It was extremely powerful, but the aftermath of the explosion would hardly affect the surrounding area. Li Changgong, who had activated the 6 realms without distance, was on a high-rise building several kilometers away from the building, with a look of confidence in his eyes. As a soldier, he was always ready for battle. Want to break into his army and behead him? How could it be so easy? Yin Jia might not know at all that since he took over the northwest region, he has faced no less than 10 assassinations and military coups by the resistance forces. Now, he is a person who keeps his long knife by his side when he sleeps. A huge flame shot straight into the sky, and its explosive equivalent was even no less than a miniature god of love. If it were not for the supreme commander of a region, no one would dare to make such a big move. Because the cost of the explosives alone is far more than a god of love with the same equivalent. And a directional explosion within a limited area will only cause more terrifying power. Even if it's a black chariot-level alien, it's impossible to be safe and sound in such an explosion. Li Changgong clenched his long sword with both hands, showing his cold teeth. His ability index is only 18,000, white chariot level. But an excellent warrior will never be superstitious about the ability index. Time, place, and people. Time and place are in his hands. Chang'an City is his home court. Here, even if the opponent is a black chariot-level alien, He has the confidence to fight with the opponent. Because he is the king of the Northwest, everything here can be used by him. The building of the command center was completely destroyed, and the flames were burning. The blazing flames raised the temperature above the entire city a lot. Even the most marginal areas of the city have benefited from the thermal radiation. In the raging flames, a twisted dark light and shadow slowly emerged. Silver armor condensed into a human form from black smoke and emerged from the huge pillar of fire. He was suspended in the air angrily. Half of his body was smoke-like, and he could turn into smoke at any time to avoid attacks. But in the explosion that covered the entire area just now, he obviously also suffered a lot of attacks. Even if he existed in the form of smoke, he could avoid many physical injuries, but the explosion comparable to the miniature love death still injured him seriously. As long as it is a carbon-based creature, except for monsters like Zhang-Yi who can directly escape into the void, no one can ignore the impact of the most powerful weapon in human history. I underestimated you a little. Human, Silver Armor said in a deep voice. His body had turned black at this time. It was unknown whether it was because of the explosion or his original posture. But this ambush can only be used once. He might not have thought that Li Changgong would turn his base camp into a crater, so he was completely unpredictable for this attack. However, even though he was seriously injured because of carelessness, he was confident that he could kill Li Changgong. Because as the silver-armored general of the Wulwan Empire, his strength was far above Li Changgong. He opened his right hand towards Li Changgong and whispered, "Smoke, kill." A large amount of black smoke quickly spread out from his palm, and in a flash, a huge inverted triangular pyramid condensed in the air. The shape of a tetrahedron, the edge is sharp like a knife to cut out the heart.
Boom.
The black pyramid exploded in an instant, and a large amount of smoke shot towards Li Changgong in an irregular blade shape. Those light smokes seemed to have mass all of a sudden, as thin as a cicada's wing, but the area opened was like a large net to catch birds. One after another, the smoke flew towards Li Changgong very quickly, and wherever they passed, they were like migratory birds rushing, twisting and spinning to pass through everything around them.
Swish. Swish.
Swish. The huge smoke screen swept over the surrounding high-rise buildings, and it was like a sharp blade cutting a piece of paper, cutting those buildings in half without a sound. Chapter 1624 Serious. Li Changgong's ability is an extremely dangerous spatial skill. If we only talk about the spatial ability, the degree of danger of his ability is even greater than Zhang-Yi. After all, this is a guy who has maxed out his output. Zhang-Yi once gave Li Changgong an evaluation. If he is given the right opportunity, no matter how many points higher his ability index is, he may die under his double swords. If it weren't for the ability of tracing all things, Zhang-Yi would never be willing to get close to him in any occasion. Jia also understood this. So his first reaction was to distance himself from Li Changgong, and then use the smoke to slowly kill Li Changgong. Because the person holding the double swords, no matter how fast the sword is, can't cut through all his smoke. Jia soared into the air, and Li Changgong also realized the other party's thoughts at the first time. He must kill the other party's body in order to win this battle. "You want to leave, have you asked me?" Li Changgong took a step forward, and 6 realms without distance was instantly activated, flying towards the sky. With a wave of his hand, Jia gathered a large amount of black smoke into the shape of an inverted pyramid again, and then rushed towards him with countless black smoke screens. The shapes of the smoke screens varied, like building a wall as thin as a cicada's wing in the air, and cut the entire space between him and Li Changgong in pieces. Li Changgong did not dare to use his ability easily, otherwise, his body would be directly divided when he teleported. "Break it, break it, break it." Li Changgong held 2 knives and slashed quickly, slicing all the smoke screens in front of him. But Jia had already flown high into the sky, keeping a distance of several thousand meters between him. He looked down from a high place and raised his hands to the sky.
Rise.
Black smoke. In an instant, a large amount of black smoke rose from various areas in the entire Chang'an city. In less than 10 seconds, the entire Chang'an city turned into a land shrouded in darkness. That was the black smoke left in advance when Jia came, and they could use the bodies of creatures to derive more smoke. At this time, they were awakened by the silver armor and rushed towards this area, seemingly slowly, but actually very quickly. Sky God of War, Baijan was standing in the battlefield at this time. Seeing the large amount of smoke covering the sky and darkening the entire city, he couldn't help but stand there in a daze.
A
large amount of black smoke has risen to a height of thousands of meters. Except for the central area of the city that he maintained and had not been completely covered, the remaining 80% of the place was already full of black smoke. Black fog of this scale cannot be completely dispelled even if he is faster. However, he gritted his teeth and twisted his body in midair, and the light and shadow were confused because of the excessive speed. Who? He turned into a firestorm and ran at high speed in Chang'an City, trying to dispel the black fog to the maximum extent in his own way. His efforts were not in vain, but compared with the black smoke covering the entire city, the smoke he could dispel was very limited. A large amount of black smoke gathered in the center of the city, the battlefield between the silver armor and Li Changgong. The diffuse smoke even greatly affected Li Changgong's vision. Jia escaped into the smoke, and soon his whereabouts could not be confirmed.
Who?
One after another, fierce attacks came at Li Changgong from various tricky angles. With the help of a large amount of smoke, Jia's attacks became more and more difficult to defend. Li Changgong held his breath and concentrated, without panicking. He chopped down with his backhand several times. The bright knife light cut through the air and directly shattered Jia's offensive. But how long can you hold on? This place is now my territory. Just surrender. You have no ability to block my attack. Jia's voice came from all directions. He hid in the shadows, not in a hurry, like a patient hunter. But after hearing what he said, Li Changgong laughed, and laughed very happily. Ha 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 ha. Jia frowned. What are you laughing at? Li Changgong laughed. I just heard a very funny joke, so I couldn't help it. His eyes became sharp, and he sneered and said, You just said that this place is already your territory? Who gave you the confidence to make you so arrogant? He opened his arms, and two bright long swords emitted a cold white light. In this northwest region, in this Chang'an city, only I, Li Changgong, am the absolute king. This place is my territory. As soon as his voice fell, the combat uniform on his body suddenly exploded. Then, under the combat uniform, a dark silver metal armor was revealed. Unlike Zhang Yi's Qianlong armor, the workmanship of this armor is obviously not as good as Liu Karen's natural craftsmanship. But it is still very gorgeous, and there are many tiny launch holes on it. Where is my weakness? I don't need others to remind me. Of course I know it. So, wouldn't I be prepared for what you would do to me? Li Changgong laughed. Serious, start. The intelligent voice of the serious armor came to his ears. Received. The next moment, from the numerous launch holes on Li Changgong's armor, silent shock waves spread rapidly in all directions. And all the black smoke surrounding him, like snow meeting the sun, began to quickly dissipate. In the first half of Li Changgong's life, he had a smooth life and hardly encountered any setbacks. Even when he joined the army later, he was promoted all the way. After the end of the world, he, who possessed an extremely strong talent, relied on his absolute strength to forcibly ascend to the position of the supreme commander of the Northwest region. This smooth life continued until he went to Shengjing district and met the man named Zhang Yi. The defeat in the duel with Zhang Yi was the first major blow he suffered in his life. Later, he went underground in Qinling Mountains and had one arm cut off by the centipede kingworm, which was the second major blow he suffered. After returning from Shengjing, he began to reflect on his abilities. Although he is strong, his weaknesses are too obvious. His attack range is limited and he mainly fights in close combat. If he encounters an enemy with powerful long-range attack methods, he will suffer. He prefers single-target attack. He originally used his attack speed to make up for this, and he could kill a group of people quickly. However, if he encounters someone with special abilities, it is also difficult to exert his strength. For example, illusion. Another example is Zhang Yi's Lord of War. Similarly, they are all launched from a long distance with a wide coverage area and cannot be effectively restrained. Extending from this, it involves smoke, light, flames, pure energy attacks, and so on. Chapter 16:25 Avoiding the Edge. None of the truly top-notch aliens are easy to deal with. They have all survived the selection of the end of the world. Therefore, any omission may become the fuse of his death. Li Changgong thought of a way to make up for his shortcomings. This serious armor was built based on this opportunity, using high-energy particle pulses to deal with the attacks of wide-area energy bodies. Whether it is plasma flames, storms and tsunamis caused by superpowers, or smoke and poisonous miasma like Injia. These attack methods can be forcibly dispersed by releasing high-energy particle pulses. Injia did not expect that Li Changgong had such a hand. His body hidden in the smoke began to become unstable and showed signs of collapse.
What?
He looked at his palm in surprise, and the smoke drifted away. In a hurry, he immediately released his smoke form. The incarnation of smoke is not completely without restrictions. After all, if your body is particleized, your defensibility will not be so strong. This is why he was seriously injured by Li Changgong's detonation of the command center. Turning into smoke particles, it is not invincible, but it is not easy to die because the body has been transformed into millions. The smoke around Li Changgong dissipated, and he used the flying device of Sirius to float in the air, confronting Injia Yaoyao, who had revealed his figure. Now your ability is no longer usable, right? Li Changgong raised the long sword in his hand and pointed at Injia. Injia looked at Li Changgong quietly and even chuckled, and said to him in Chinese, "Interesting, you are indeed a very interesting human being." When he said this, his eyes suddenly seemed a little lost. Being too smart is not a good thing. This may be the beginning of destruction. Li Changgong frowned. "What a mess you are talking about, I don't understand. But now, it's my turn to cut you."
Schwa.
6 realms without distance was activated instantly. Li Changgong flew towards Injia through the air, and the long sword in his hand slashed a knife from a distance. The attack that can ignore all physical rules forced Injia to put away his thoughts of memories. His figure flashed quickly in the air, dodging the fatal blow. Li Changgong was a little surprised. He didn't expect that, even without turning into smoke, Injia's speed could be so fast that he even dodged his attack. "The gap between you and me cannot be made up by this little trick." Injia's voice came coldly. He raised his right hand and drew a cross in the air with his fingertips. His hand was like a pencil, and the fine black mist was like carbon powder engraved in the air, forming a black cross.
Swish.
The cross broke through the air in an instant and quickly enlarged, as if to swallow Li Changgong whole. Li Changgong drew his sword and slashed it fiercely. The black cross of unimaginable power was directly split. "No matter how powerful your attack is, it will be broken in front of me." Li Changgong stared at Injia and launched 6 realms without distance again, trying to attack at close range. Silver Armor said, "You can only affect those floating smoke. But the smoke in my body is not so easy to be shattered by you." He opened his mouth and a thick black smoke gushed out from his body, which quickly filled the air. Li Changgong's sharp knife light cut through the sky, but was flexibly avoided by the smoke again. As long as you avoid the direction your blade is pointing at, your threat is almost equal to 0. Silver Armor's tone was light, but Li Changgong felt a strong sense of irony. He gritted his teeth. "Then let's see who is faster, you or me." The black smoke turned into 6 huge wings behind Silver Armor. He was like a dark angel who fell into the world, laughing and flying in the air at a very fast speed. Li Changgong held a long knife, teleported over and raised the knife to cut. The black smoke dodged his attack, and then controlled the black smoke around him, turning into spikes, sharp blades, and spiral blades to attack him. He no longer exists in the form of smoke, but if Li Changgong continues to use the pulse of this serious armor to deal with the scattered smoke, he can only delay the rhythm of his attack at most. Because Sirius can only disperse the smoke and make the silver armor body that is turned into smoke unable to exist in a stable state, it does not have much killing power. Li Changgong and Yinjia launched a fierce collision in midair. The attacks of both are fatal. Anyone who is attacked by the other will face the crisis of death. The black smoke has a variety of forms and is very difficult to deal with, but Li Changgong's pair of quick knives, an invincible ability, forcibly cut through all the incoming attacks. He laughed heartily and quickly closed the distance with Yinjia with the ability of 6 realms without distance. As long as he reaches within his attack range, he can kill everything with just one knife. Not to mention the aliens of the Black Chariot level. Even the Bishop level cannot block his I am God's will slash. Yinjia can feel the power of the sharp blade, and his eyes are full of shock. Such a high-level ability. A pure attack attribute that ignores everything. If this human grows up, he will definitely become a terrible threat. A ball of black mist appeared in his right hand, emerging. But fortunately, you are not my opponent now. The smoke that filled the sky gradually fell towards Chang'an City. Although they could not pose much threat to Li Changgong, they were fatal to all living creatures in the entire Chang'an City. Even those elite Delta-level warriors had almost no power to fight back when facing it. The black smoke covered their entire bodies as if it had life, and then turned them into gray wooden stakes like mummies. From the dead wood, brilliant and charming flowers grew. Every time a flower bloomed, it marked the fall of a life. And the momentum of the silver armor became stronger. The gray mist was also a part of his body. The vitality they absorbed would be transformed into the power of the silver armor itself. Therefore, in this Chang'an City, there are hundreds of thousands of surface troops as nutrients, and it is almost difficult for him to exhaust his strength. Yinjia's figure was like a fleeting shadow in the air, with a lot of smoke lingering around him. He was so fast that even if Li Changgong used the 6 realms no distance to track him, his 2 swords could hardly cut Yinjia's body. A knife that can't cut a person is useless no matter how sharp it is. Yinjia said lightly. Then I just need to avoid the edge of your blade. His speed was not faster than Li Changgong's teleportation. But it didn't mean that Li Changgong could swing his sword faster than him. As the people of the Wulwan Empire, their physical fitness was far beyond that of humans. And the people of the Black Chariot level were the top warriors of the Wulwan Empire, with extremely rich combat experience. How easy is it to hit him with just 2 long swords?